Madam Minister, what a pleasure to see you once again.
Thank you very much.
China-Mongolia has tremendously strong cultural ties. I know that you have been working on this tie for quite some years. Tell me more about the new features and characteristics of this relationship in terms of cultural exchanges.
So China is our immediate neighbor, has always been, and the fact that we share very strong ties with the culture, especially historically we have a very strong tie. But coming up more than anything else is now it's more cultural creative industry, which is making sure that we combine our cultural unity with the creative industry, where the new generation can understand our cultural background.
Earlier at the opening ceremony, the Chinese Premier Li Qiang was talking also about the importance of communication and cross-cultural understanding. How important it is that we don't just understand each other on the surface, but go in depth. Despite some differences, we could each think about issues with empathy.
Yeah, so when you understand somebody else's cultural background, that's where your empathy comes in. Because as a different, we're all different in the world. Our backgrounds are very different, which makes us unique to each in any way. However, when you really understand the other person's cultural background, that gives the empathy point really strongly, where people, like in our tradition, if we actually step on somebody's foot, we shake hands. It shows respect. But when you understand that culture, you'll be able to understand what my gesture is. So I think the culture makes that empathy part stronger.
And also understanding others' cultures can help us to understand ourselves even better.
Exactly, yeah. Unless you understand somebody else's culture, you do not also respect your own culture. I think the comparisons gives you that sense that you have a feeling towards your own culture, and then also respect towards others' culture.
Communication is not an easy issue, by the way. I think it's the toughest job now in the world.
Yes, definitely. But what I see is that obviously diplomacy, there's many ways of doing it, but I think cultural diplomacy is something we ought to get it into ourselves in order for the future to proceed. I think when there is a civil society to be able to communicate directly, culture is the key, and that's where people understand each other. So bringing cultural activities or cultural contents to different countries, that really speaks to the nation.
Building a bridge takes years and sometimes decades, but destroying a bridge can be just overnight. So this is also applying to the job that you are doing about the cross-cultural and cross-country communications under this very complicated backdrop, isn't it? For a country like Mongolia, you have big neighbors, and you also have international circumstances, including geopolitics. How to do that balance, and meanwhile go more than skin deep when it comes to the importance of communication and unity.
We've always existed in this region, and I always say, I don't know whether it's the right term or not, but we can't, backpack our country and move somewhere else. We've always been here, and our two neighbors have been always very respectful towards our culture, our people, and our social and political decisions we have done. And the fact that the people-to-people understanding has always been there, which really made it very much easier for us to balance our decisions.
Now, China and Mongolia has been enjoying tremendous economic and trade relations. More than half of Mongolia's imports actually coming from China. Meanwhile, Mongolia has been a very important trading partner for China as well. So how will culture work with trade, with economic prosperity? I guess that's a question you're thinking about on your own and also with your counterparts within the administration.
So as a country, our government's new policy, a medium-term policy called New Recovery Policy, is really to puts a strong emphasis on diversifying our economy. As you just rightly said, we have a very strong relationship with China, especially when it comes to trade. China is one of the largest trading partner for Mongolia, and especially when it comes to commodity. But as a country, we are diversifying into tourism, cultural creative industry, and then also new energy. So so in that perspective, cultural creative industry wise, because of the fact that we have such a rich history and a cultural heritage, that allows us use this as a resource and create the new products that can be brought into as a service to the world.
That's a great way to put it. But this transition is not going to be always easy, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But I believe that with the new technology development, with the new AI technology, I think this will make it much easier for the countries like us, who is developing countries, and the smaller countries, be able to create the new services to the world.
New technology is so crucial these days. When we talk about the annual meeting of the new champions, innovation and technology might play a role in our understanding of others' cultures, and also a role in being a good tool to spread the culture, but at the same time, it has its side effects.
Yes. I think first and foremost, linguistically, it will be much easier for people to communicate. You know, communication is the key to in any part of exchange. So in the future, AI will be able to give us tools that we can communicate without even getting a translator. Right. So I think that will be an amazing experience for everybody to be able to communicate without any barrier.
Yeah, but you know, if you look at the GPT recently, a lot of the language are mainly in English, yes. Not necessarily in Chinese, not necessarily Mongolian. So it's going to be a big problem, I guess, for the other cultures.
So about the ChatGPT, I think it is an AI that be able to develop itself very fast. So I think the sources that we put into it will give us the ability yes. to change it over. But on the
participate,
yeah,
how
exactly.
to participate in this
yeah,
process.
Exactly. So I think it is a participation from this, the people who that will really improve this AI technology. But on the other side, I think we also have to be cautious about AI and making sure that the policies that allow people to be creative in the future themselves and use these technologies for their own advantages instead of being, being used by it. Let's put it in that way.
Right, right. China and Mongolia has been enjoying, friendship under many circumstances. For example, during the pandemic, yes. Many Chinese remember it very clearly. That is our Mongolian friend who sent the goats that have been walking long distance to China. So beautiful stories still echo today. But how to, on the other hand, when the pandemic is coming to a temporary pause, how can we build on what we already had under these new circumstances?
I think, as I was just stating, that the culture is something that really puts people together. I think, obviously, government to government, we are creating a lot of initiatives. As you just rightly stated, Mongolia and China has a comprehensive strategic partnership, a relationship, and it has always existed, and it's a very strong relationship. And China has always been a very supporting partner for Mongolia in many senses. But moving forward, I think building on our trade partnership, moving into different industries will give us the ability to further strengthen our relationship and also prosper both countries.
Now, China has also been talking about a higher quality growth. And the infrastructure for artificial intelligence and mobile has always been very much on the rise. So that would provide a quite good momentum for China and Mongolia to cooperate, I would assume.
Definitely. The fact that everybody is looking into moving into clean energy, making sure that the next generation of energy is created, that Mongolia is one of the biggest supplier, is going to be one of the biggest supplier for electric materials, and I think I feel like Mongolia will play a strong role in the supply chain of the future energies. So we've always been a trading partner with you when it comes to providing those, and then, you know, now China has produces the battery, produces a lot of the
electric cars.
Electric cars, but we have the commodity that can be part of this, so like the copper, you know, the rare earth, all of those elements. And so from a supply chain point of view, it is a very strong tie in there.
Culture and tourism is always closely linked. When we travel to another country, of course we're having fun, right? But at the same time, something about that culture, we will take it back with us. How much do you see in terms of potential there between these two countries, China and Mongolia?
Tremendous.
Tremendous.
I would say so. Even at the borders, you know, close border tourism is a very easy access because we are bordering with China. So from that perspective, we are creating a possibility for close border tourism, so that way it's easy access to Mongolia, using car to come to Mongolia rather than just flight. So we feel that we have a very big opportunity for cross-border tourism, and I think based on culture tourism will be a very strong one.
Final question. This administration in your country is a very young and dynamic one, including you, Madam Minister, coming to your position with a lot of energy. So how do you see the importance of nurturing the next generation of both leaders and also bridge builders, so that we could expect a more smooth transition in the future?
Yes, I feel like that equity part should be talked about in this sense. So really having a voice for society, to have a different part of the society to be able to have their voices in the decision making. Mongolia is a very young nation. We have about 65% is under 35 years old. And so I feel that more people who are willing to get their voices heard should be part of the decision making, and giving an equity to everybody gives the chance for the society to be able to move and transition to the next stage.